Whenever you deviate from your process or say, yes, I'm going to get this for you, or yes, I can do this, those are always the projects that go south because you've deviated from those processes that you've set.
So welcome to the FT Construction Podcast. Very excited today. So we have Black Ink Interiors on. We have Jenny Slingerland, she is the owner and principal designer. And we have Ben, who is the COO, which just before we got on, I understand he was employee of the month. So after 5 years with the company, got a pair of Jordans. That's his compensation.
That's right.
That's it.
That's right. That's right. They
Are
sit
you
proudly
hiring?
on.
At
They
Jordan
sit
3s, are you
proudly.
hiring?
Yeah,
No,
right.
seriously. She had to go to great lengths to find me a pair. So
Yeah.
appreciate it, boss.
That's it.
Well, that's awesome
You do what
stuff.
you got to do. You do what you got to do.
Well, you have to
Keep people
retain
happy.
talent, Jenny. You
That's
got to
right.
keep
That's
Ben
right.
on board. You got to retain him.
Yeah. Yep.
So what is Black Ink?
Black Ink Interiors is a luxury interior design firm. We focus on high-end new build, remodel, and furnishing projects. We have some awesome projects here in the Valley, in the Phoenix Valley. We have a project in the Bahamas, a project in Southern California. So we will travel for work, and we're blessed to have great clients right now, and to just really be able to kind of, I don't want to say pick and choose, but to be more what's the word I'm looking for? Ben, this is why you're on the podcast, to help fill in the missing words for me. Where we can pick projects that align with sort of our core values and with the design that we like to do. I think I've been doing this long enough that I'm now in a place where I can pick the jobs that will bring me joy, because I know, and maybe you've been there too in the beginning, where you say yes to everything, and then you at some point you lose the joy in those projects. And so we're blessed to be able to take on projects that bring us joy right now. So
I think it's interesting. There's definitely a point in everyone's career where you really feel the need to have to take jobs. I mean, it's just part of it.
Yeah.
But you
Yeah.
said something that's a little unique, I think, to most guests, is when you're speaking about the ideal client, which all of us are trying to find, who's the ideal client. And you're mentioning you have some great ones right now, and you're traveling, both of you, fortunately, to do these amazing projects. But you made a comment, Jenny, you said that align with our core values. How important is that? Without giving away all your core values, I mean, you can if you want, but when you think about what some of your core values are at Black Ink Interiors,
yeah.
What are those, and how do they align with some of the clients you have?
Ben, do you want to speak to that? I feel like Ben is the author of our values, so I'll let him.
Yeah, I think. I mean, we have some. One of ours, I'd say, this kind of comes back from some corporate experience of mine, but it's around kind of mutuality, or having a mutual relationship with not only your clients but your vendors or suppliers. And really, the idea is that you want to be in relationships where both parties ultimately benefit and succeed through that relationship. So our goal is not only obviously for us to run a business, to generate an income and support our families and those things, but it's also to create like amazing spaces that are unique and custom for our clients, to the point where they live in it every day. And a good example, we have a client that still reaches out to Jenny once in a while. It's like, we sit, whatever room they're in the house, they sit in the house and say, we can't believe this is our house, right? Like this, we can't believe that this is our space. And it's still mind blowing after a year of living in it, right? So that's what we want to create. And so there's a couple things there that make that happen. Being selective is not only in the right kind of client, but it's also allowing really Jenny's ability to design freely in the way that brings her joy, and that she knows it's I don't know how to describe this the best way, but like her particular style is different and unique, and it's really about personality. And so I guess that's the thing, is it's not only the client fit from like financial perspective or whatever, but it's really about, does the client love Jenny's style, and is that something Jenny can get behind and really enjoy working with?
That's amazing. And what I really like that you said, Ben, is you made a comment. You said the mutual relationship, how important that is. We often correlate, the building process. You as the design team, and you're engaged with the client from pre-construction through construction, dealing with us builders, and then the client after, furnishing the home. It's a really long relationship, and it's funny because when you study like marriage, they always say, well, what leads to divorce? Yeah, money and intimacy. I mean, there's a lot of things, and this isn't the part of this podcast, but I think the important part of it is relationships. All these studies from psychologists always say that in a relationship that they've studied, when one of the partners doesn't respect the other, right? When there's like a disrespect or they don't feel that they're at their level, whatever that may be, maybe hard work or intelligence, I don't know, whatever that is. So if they don't feel that they're on the same level, that's always where the marriage breaks apart. And you look at the customer relationship, when you have customers that respect you, Jenny, you, Ben,
Mhm.
as entrepreneurs, as building a company and working really hard, and they respect that because maybe they've done that. Um, I find that those relationships are really unique when you have someone that respects you, because whenever that respect turns the other way, I can tell you
Mhm.
this just as a builder, when clients don't respect us or the profession or what we're doing, it is really hard to salvage that relationship,
Yeah.
make it an amicable deal. I mean, how's that been for you just from a design perspective?
It is very tricky. And there are always times where, especially right now, I feel like in the furnishings where we have less control, and you probably do with the builds too, and the delays in certain materials, or we're still dealing with the effects of COVID with the furniture lead times being longer than expected. And it's hard to give that news to somebody, and especially somebody who maybe that's not a good enough answer for them. And then it's sort of I'm trying to do what I can on my end. They sort of see that, but at the same time, they really wanted the furniture in by Christmas, let's say, and we can't deliver on what we thought we could deliver. Kind of at no fault of our own, but it is the nature of the beast right now. And it's, we have a sit down meeting to try to realign and, like, yes, things aren't going as planned, but like, let's sit down and talk about this and let's find a path of moving forward. And we recently had that with a client for the example I just gave with the furniture delays and things like that. And it was just like, look, we're going to finish your project strong. We want to finish this. We want to, make this, we want you to love your house at the end of the day. And I know that we can get there. It's going to look a little different than when we had all planned, but we're going to get there. Have patience, and let's, understand we're trying to do all that we can. But I'm curious on the build side, how are you, because I know you probably are dealing with some of those same things, and how do you handle that relationship? Because you're right, some of these projects were on for 2 to 3 years and you can't run away.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. And I was going to ask you, probably similar. You're probably similar to me in the sense that I find myself uh, trying to be more clear with the expectations, right? I think we're very aware of labor and material. And so in the sales process, just with the clients, they all have a desire. And so what I'm trying to do is break their heart on day one, as opposed to,
Yeah.
month 16. And what I
Yeah.
mean by that is I've gone through this a few times where there's some, clients are, whether it be a large renovation or it's a new build, I know from the beginning there's some timelines that are important to them. We're in Phoenix, and so there's a couple factors. It could be the season, because they're like, hey, if I miss a season, this is big to me because they're from out of state. So it doesn't matter to them if I finish the home in June because it's summer. They don't want to be here. They
Right.
want it done for the holidays. They want it done in the spring when they can be
Yeah.
here out of cold weather. So they look at it seasonal. Some of it could be, in for Christmas or maybe a big event, a wedding. We've dealt with all these. And so what I found is now, instead of trying to be the hero, I'd rather be the villain from day one, just saying, hey, look, I just know where this is going to go. I know timing. We're not going to make it, but let's strategize and still try to make this up. And I found it so much better that typically, when I look back at, the last, say, 20 clients that I've worked with, the two that weren't great is because we tried to over deliver on something that we
Yeah.
couldn't do. And it just came back to bite us. Even when you're trying to do a favor, in the end, it doesn't work.
No. And can I say,
Yeah.
to your point of doing favors, it kind of goes along with the lines we're talking about with client satisfaction. Whenever you deviate from your process or say, yes, I'm going to get this for you, or yes, I can do this, or it's a friend and they just want a little help, those are always the projects that go south because you've deviated from those processes that you've set, that are tried and true. But oh, this time, and we'll just do it this once, and it's a good friend, or it's this client, or we got to make this work. And those are always the ones, I think, that will come back and bite you in the, you know what.
Yeah. Well, and Jenny and I had a good conversation because we did just have, we have some great clients, but they're, had some difficulties with lead times and things. As once you're a couple months into something, when you find out lead times have changed and delays, it's hard to then go back and have those conversations to say, hey, we thought this, but this is what's really happening. And coming out of that conversation, just a recognition that also that I think you said it, Brad, that like the more you can communicate in the beginning that this is what it's going to look like, and this is what you can expect, the better the projects will be and the relationships will be, because you'd rather give the bad news in the beginning than somewhere along the way, right, where they have other expectations. And so for us, it's like, really, our process takes a long time, and some of the stuff that we do is unique and custom, down to selecting fabric from one vendor, shipping it to another vendor to to make a sectional or whatever, and whenever you do that, it just adds time, but the end result is amazing. And so ultimately, what we want to communicate when we try to communicate to our clients is be patient and wait. Be patient and wait for the design to be delivered, because ultimately you'll get the best result when you can be patient. When you rush things, you end up getting, products or, materials that, you didn't necessarily want, or that aren't they couldn't been as amazing if you just had the patience. And so the more we can communicate that up front in the beginning, the better, because it allows us to deliver on the overall design instead of, cutting corners to get stuff in quicker.
It's interesting you say that, Ben, because I think, when I just look at my personality, right, I think most people know me. I'm a really optimistic person. I think that, there's some things where that can be a weakness, right? Because you could be a little too optimistic, or maybe
Sure.
people may think it's a little salesy, but at the same token, be an entrepreneur, you really have to be, not just opportunistic, but you have to have a positive mindset, and you have to be, just glass is always half full kind of mentality, right? It's a really tough business. But what's interesting about that being the optimism side, I was sitting down with a client and they said, okay, Brad, this sounds great. The sales pitch, your process, all this stuff with AFT, that's great. When am I going to hate you during the build? When am I not going to like you? And I thought that was interesting, because I was like, I've never had a client ask that, and it made me think a little bit about, yeah, there's going to be times that they're not happy in the build. And I always know what those are. We can kind of pinpoint those, and it's always kind of similar aspects, could be early on pre-con when we have an estimated budget and the realistic of the cost, right? When we price it out and here's the market. It could be, when the house is getting towards the final and you have everything masked off for final paint and it kind of looks messy, even though once that's off and clean, the house will look great. For you as a design team, furniture team, everything you're doing for this whole relationship, what would you tell the clients when they say, okay, Jenny, Ben, this sounds great, but when am I not going to like you?
They're definitely not going to like us when they've paid us all the money and then there's nothing to show for it for 6 to 8 months. And they're just like, you have all of our money. We're destitute now, and we have no couch to sit on. And you're like, I know. And we had a client that we sent a package, and like a little care package. It had some ibuprofen, some other things in it. And it was like, like, now's the time, take 2, call us in the morning. Cause it's hard, and it's hard to deliver bad news. And like you said, you're optimistic. I'm very much a people pleaser. And so I want to be able to say it's going to be on this day, and then it is on this day. I want to over deliver. And it's really hard, and it's a little gut wrenching right now in the market to constantly have to be apologizing. And I hate it so much, but it just is. And I don't know when we'll get back to a place where parts aren't back ordered or fabrics back ordered, or it takes 4 to 6 weeks to ship it out here. There's just so many different, there's so many different hands involved, from the manufacturer to the shipping to all of the things. And, I was talking to one of our vendors, and just a custom piece of furniture, he said we'll touch 30 to 40 hands just in their factory from the time of production to the time it finishes. 30 to 40 hands. And you think about, the amount of time that takes, and how many times maybe something along there goes wrong, or they need to, whatever. But custom design isn't, like Ben said, it can't be rushed, and it always ends up better in the end if you're patient and you wait for good design and good quality pieces. I think anybody can run to Restoration Hardware and just live out of a catalog, which to me is super sad, but you can, but I think that you're not as happy in the end to have the same house that all your neighbors have.
So maybe speak to that for anyone that may not be as understanding or savvy as you both, right? When it comes to design and furnishings and what that means to have something custom fit for you. Of course, budget is a player, but let's take budget out of it.
Mhm.
Let's take cost out of it. When you're comparing something from a catalog, um, as opposed to doing something custom, that's really
Mhm.
fit for them, what is the difference? What's the value? What's the opportunity, for the client?
Yeah, I think the number one thing that we see is quality. So twice a year, you've got High Point Market, you've got the Las Vegas market. You have these different markets where we can go, we can sit in the product, we can hear the vendors telling us this is 8-way hand tied. We have this foam core, and then we wrap it in a down, and then this, and then they walk you through all the steps. I have a very hard time ever ordering retail because I don't know where it's coming from. I don't know who's making it. I don't know, the length of travel that it's going to get here. Is the wood going to split? What's going to happen? I don't know that those quick manufactured items in well, I'll say China, but I mean, it can be anywhere really. But these items that are just mass produced, I don't, there's a loss of not only, I think, quality but also just in, it just makes me sad to know that there are people who just put something into their home because it's quick and because it's easy, um, without really giving that thought of what do I need to function? What is going to make me happy? Is there personality? Is there soul to this? Is this something that somebody lovingly made and, handmade in North Carolina, and it's being shipped to my family? Like, I love the story that comes with like true kind of custom design. And I think that's missed when it's just comes out of a catalog, and, every Tom, Dick, and Harry has what you have. And I know that's a bit of a tangent, but I just feel really strongly that good design is based around custom pieces made for your family. We take into account what the fabric is. Do you have 3 kids and 2 dogs? Then we're going to pick a performance fabric. And are the vendors that we use, we have hundreds and hundreds of options for each vendor that we use that we can pick to make sure that the color is right, that it's a performance fabric, or is this going to be a beautiful silk chair that nobody's going to sit in, but it's going to be the sculptural piece in the corner. So a lot of love goes into the design, and I just feel like that's often lost with the retail component of
Yeah,
that.
Brad, one more thing to add to that, Jenny. I think there's an element too where Jenny and the team lay everything out in CAD. So they'll take a look at the space, like if it's a great room or family room, they're going to take a look at that space and say, okay, we're going to custom design a sectional that actually fits perfectly into that room, right? So it takes into account the scale of the room, the heights of the ceilings, everything to make that piece of furniture actually fit in the space and not feel too small or too big. And so there's an element of planning that's technical to make sure the pieces are the right size for the space. And then and really, I think in Jenny's real skill set is the personality component of it. Like, the body of the fabric may be one color, then she's going to have a welt that's a different color that, does some fringe or some unique individual pillows. Like, rarely does she just stick with whatever pillows come with come standard with the sectional or whatever. She'll actually, order a very specific fabric that, ties into into a chair in the room or something, some other features. So everything's very thought out. It's very time intensive. And that's, I guess, the other piece I think clients sometimes hate is when they realize and look at how much time goes into like one piece of furniture. Really, it's hours sometimes that goes into selecting one piece of furniture, because that's how much detail and like unique personality Jenny's looking to put into each piece in the house to make sure that it really makes a statement.
I love that, because essentially what you're speaking of is lifestyle, right? There's definitely a time and a place where people, are, you know, starting their life, marriage, whatever it may be. But there comes a point, your ideal client, you're looking for someone that appreciates this lifestyle. I know we're both big on this. I'm big on hiring interior designers. We've worked together, and this is a big part of your brand as well. Case in point, I need to step up my game, because I'm here for those watching on YouTube. I'm looking at, this is Jenny and Ben's first appearance on the podcast, and their backdrops are like perfect. I mean, I'm looking at mine. I'm like, I better fix mine up a little bit for the next episodes. But essentially, to what you were saying, Jenny, and you, Ben, with just the spatial aspect of it, when you look at the scale of the build, and there's value to building and cultivating a lifestyle for your client that, as you mentioned, when you have clients coming back a month later, a year later, saying, I can't believe this is our home. And you're testing furniture, you're going to High Point, you're going to, you have a relationship with your furniture vendors and everything's so custom to the client. There is a sense of satisfaction, but not just that, inspiration. I've seen, um, a good example was yesterday, Burdette Cabinets, who, we
Mhm.
both use and you know them really well. It was really neat. We have a project with them, and I met with the owners of our cabinet company. We were at lunch, and you know, it can be very discouraging, our industry. I'm sure both of you have those
Yeah.
days where you're like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Because you're just you feel like you're getting beat up nonstop from
Yeah.
clients and vendors and partners and suppliers. And so you kind of just take a beating on a regular basis. And I know it was one of those weeks. And he said, Brad, it's been a hard week and we've had, some challenging things. And I went and walked a project that we're just finishing. He said, being in that home, seeing it furnished, the finishes in there, seeing the cabinetry, seeing the home done, and the client's about to move in. He said, it was inspiring. I needed that. It's nice to kind of see that,
Mm.
like, the fruits of your labors. And for him, he's in towards the end, but not at the end of the project, and doesn't get to go back to every project. So he got to see it finished. And he's like, there's just a sense of enjoyment, not from a customer, but us. And I'm sure both of you can relate to that as well.
Yeah. Definitely. When we style a home and it's sort of the cherry on top, right? The furniture is in, everything's in, but without that final layer of styling where we have the books and we have like the floral arrangements and we have the things and we have that last finishing touch and you just like take a breath and you just say, okay, we did it, and it's finished and it's wonderful, and the homeowners walk in and we do the reveal, and you sort of have that HGTV moment, and everybody's, sometimes they're crying, and then that makes me cry because it is a journey. And like you said, when, we have a house that we're working on right now, and we've been working on it since 2020, and we're only just to framing. I mean, this will probably be a 4 to 5 year project by the time it's finished. But and so when you do finalize that, it's the end of almost this era in your life when you're with somebody for 5 years, and then you have that moment of realization of like, we did it, we're here, and you're moving in, your beds are made, we've done everything we can for you, and here it is. It's total elation, and on both sets of, for us and for them.
So let me ask you that, because 4 to 5 years, it's a really long relationship. We spoke about relationships a little
Yeah.
bit earlier, and I know Ben talked about the mutual, relationship between you and the customer, and how important that is, the respect there. Um, I've dealt with things, and this is definitely enhanced for you because you mentioned even one piece of furniture can touch 30 hands. So you have commitment days from your vendors, and all the time you're planning for something to come in, say November 10th, and November 10th
Mhm.
comes and you get an email, oh, it's coming January 15th. Like, it's not even
Mhm.
close within the same range. How are you dealing with that aspect? Because it's happened to me on a material side, but even more for you on the furniture side.
Yeah, it's rough. I mean, we will push it as long as we can till we feel like we have to order now. And so we'll be asking up to that point, like, are we still on track? Are we still on track? Are we still on track? And then what we tell the homeowner is, if we pull the trigger for that November 15th deadline, and we've been told up to the point that we have to start ordering, that's going to be the date, we tell the homeowner this is going to sit in storage and you're going to accrue some pretty serious storage fees. And that sucks. That conversation really sucks. And sometimes, like, it's not the builder's fault either, right? You're waiting on different materials to come in, or you're waiting for something, and so it's sort of this. I need to be better at this, and I think Ben is, but I think after recent experiences, I'm getting better at, let's have those hard conversations early and not when it's happening. Just that people pleaser in me, I have to like put her in a box, tie it up with a bow, and set her aside, and just like, Jenny, who the realist is your new designer. Do you know what I mean? Where all of a sudden it's like, I'm just going to tell you all the horrible things that are going to happen. Things are going to come in broken. They're going to come in damaged. We're going to take care of it. You might pay some pretty serious, fees in for storage, but I'm gonna give them all the best shoes up front. I'm tired of being the people pleaser and then disappointing everybody. I can't do it anymore.
Yeah, I think it's hard, Brad, because I think there's this fine balance between having everything ready for when the house is finished and moving it all in, to having stuff way too early. And especially in this world right now, I mean, it's even harder to time things appropriately. But I think we've been telling our clients now, it's like, if you have an expected move-in date, and it's a year from that is when we really should be digging deep into the furnishings and even looking at ordering certain pieces that we know are going to take 8 to 10 months, just because that's the life we live right now. But we try to give as much heads up as we can. But at the end of the day, you just have to make that balance. Like, do you want to move in with a full house of stuff, or would you rather move in, with half your stuff and have the other stuff trickle in over the next 6 months? So it really is a fine balance. There's not really an easy answer, quite honestly. So we just try to communicate and forewarn the best we can, and then hope for the best that timelines improve, or that the construction timeline stays pretty close to what's expected.
So based on your roles with the company, which one of you gets to handle the supplier and that challenging conversation for storage with the client?
I try to put as much difficult conversations on Ben as humanly possible.
Yeah, I mean, we've had, I think we've had one experience that actually happened right, sort of right in the middle of COVID, but where there were pretty significant delays on the construction side, and otherwise I felt like we learned from that moment, and we've done a better job of projecting what we still struggle with is probably more the furniture timelines and the delays related to that, versus like, when's the build going to be finished, and part of that is, some of the newer builds are harder to project, because it feels like there's more fluidity in terms of that particular schedule of completion. But some of the projects we've been in that have been more renovation, it feels like there's a little more control, and so we've been able to time that a little better. But Jenny does, back to that point, Jenny tries to have the tough conversations go through, but at the same time, we always converse about it, because in some cases Jenny has the better relationship with the client because she's interacting with them more. And if we feel that that's the right approach, then it's like, hey, why don't you're the one they know and trust and they've had more experiences with, and it's probably better coming from you than from me, who they might get an email from here or there, or they've met once. So we try to it's really client by client based on kind of the relationship. But like we talked about, referencing a kind of a tough conversation we had recently. We went together and sat right, face to face with the clients, and we felt that was the appropriate thing to do, and not handle it via email or just a phone call. It's sometimes face to face, and together is the best way to do it.
Yeah.
So I know.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Jenny. No, you're good.
No, I was just going to say, I know sometimes it feels easier I just want to handle this in an email. And I'm just like, I want to send an email so bad right now. But it's always better to pick up the phone or arrange to meet in person, as hard as it is. But it always is better. And even though you just want to hit send, like, done. I did what I had. I did the hard thing. It's like, nah, you gotta, this is a call, or this is a in-person meeting. And so they're always more difficult, but you want to treat them with respect, and I think showing that respect and knowing, like, this is very important to us. Let's sit down and talk about it is always an important move.
Well, and I know that Ben has not been part of Black Ink from day one, right? I mean, this is something that's over the last 5 years or so. How did that come to play? Ben, it sounds like you had a career before. So what made the decision where you're like, hey, we're ready?
Yeah, I think a couple things probably happened. I was working. I had been working for Mars. Most people would know as, like, Snickers, M&Ms, company. I've been with them for quite a while, and had kind of a remote type role. And when Jenny and I moved to Arizona, we were like, this is kind of where I want to stay. We'd been moving every couple of years, for different job opportunities for me within the company. And I think when we got to Arizona, we recognized this is where we wanted to stay. Our kids were old enough now where they're both in school full time. And so Jenny's like, you know what, I'm going to make a go of Black Ink Interiors. She started the company years before, but had just done, smaller projects, friends, family, because we were, like I said, bouncing around the country so much. So it was probably 2016 timeframe where she kind of just went kind of full steam and really started working the area hard and building relationships. And it was probably 2018 where I was kind of thinking about what's my next move going to be in my career. And Jenny's business is blowing up, and it just kind of like the timing was maybe a little quicker than we thought, but we just said, you know what, maybe this is the right time. It's time for me to make a change. And you clearly need some help, because it was getting very overwhelming for her with the number of projects she was taking on. And I think at the time only had maybe one part-time or semi-part-time, employee. So it was like,
it was one of the hardest decisions we've ever made, because in your mind, when we're sitting there and we're thinking, because we talked about it for probably like 6 months, maybe even more. And like in my mind, it's doomsday. It's, what if this doesn't work? We're going to be homeless. We're going to be living on food stamps out of our car. It was like, I literally was like, this could be the end of our lives. And then I was listening to a podcast one day, and somebody was asked the question. It was like, in whatever journey they were on, and it was, what is the worst thing that could happen? And I was like, oh, well, all these things. And then I was like, actually, the worst thing that could happen is he just goes and gets another job. He has an MBA, he's well qualified in all the things. And I just was like, that's the worst thing that could happen. And if that's the worst thing, is that he just goes and gets another job, like, let's do this. So it was a lot of late nights and sleepless nights and all the things for months and months and months. And then just to have that realization of like, oh, he just gets another job. And so it was very easy after that to be like, let's do this.
So do you attribute just the podcast to change that mindset? Or I mean, or
literally, yeah, that one thing, just what is the worst thing that could happen? Because in my mind, they were horrible, horrible things that would happen to us. And then it just turns out he would just go get another job. It was like so weird that that's what it took. You know what I mean? But just rethinking your brain in one way. And that was it. It was like, all right, let's do it.
Well, in fairness, I would say in defense, I think many business owners struggle. When do I hire, right? And then you hire, and there's a whole different set of responsibilities when you hire someone. When you hire employees, I know for me personally, I think I'm at 23 now, and I look at my 23 employees, and I'm like, okay, they have families, they have their lives, they have kids, like you find a lot of stress in a way, because you're like, can I create a career for them? And you think about it for you bringing your spouse in. Well, now it's like, okay, we're doubling down on the household. So it takes that stress to another level. So in fairness, I think it's totally valid.
I'm telling you, I did not know. I haven't ever had to be the breadwinner. I've worked, but never the breadwinner. And then when that stress is real, like it's real, like I feel bad. I mean, I don't want to say all men are the breadwinners, but probably primarily in this country. But I didn't know. I had no idea that level of stress of providing for your family and providing for your employees' families, and just, it's bananas, really. And so we're blessed that we've had the growth that we've had, and we've been able to, keep all the mouths fed and put a little money aside for our kids' college education. But I mean, it's a hard decision to make, and it's one I'm glad that we did make. But it still is very stressful. That doesn't go away.
Well, I think what's interesting is Ben made this comment. He talked about, Jenny, you getting into town and really going for it. I want to ask you some secrets to success. And the reason I say that, just some credit to you, is I remember when you came in, it's like coming by storm, the Black Inks in Phoenix and Scottsdale. Like, I mean, networking events and reaching out, DMing on Instagram. You came in and met with our team. Fairness to you, like I met Luann Nigera because of you. You built a great relationship with her, and now I'm doing a lot of stuff with her. Been on her podcast. And for those listening, Luann's a huge, probably the biggest podcaster in the interior design world. I mean, she has a huge following from New Jersey. But what's interesting is the power of networking and what you built so fast. A lot of people struggle. Should I start my company? And of course, there's you have to just go for it, like you're mentioning here, but strategies you had just to build such a following and network so fast with so many architects, designers, because you have a design community I know you network with, and some friends that you regularly converse with to share, pricing and stuff like that, and then the builders as well.
Yeah, it was one of those things, like, if I'm going to make this work, I'm going to really try to make this work. And when we moved here, we didn't have any friends here. We had no family here. There was nobody to sort of like sit back and be like, oh, well, my grandma's going to introduce me to somebody and they'll work on their house. It was like, I know no one. And I just got on Google and started researching luxury home builders. And I just made a list of who I wanted to reach out to, looked at architects. I called around joined ASID, and then phone calls to like Sub-Zero Wolf, like put me on your party like party list, and just I would go meet with builders, meet with architects, totally cold call or just drop in with some cupcakes or something silly, but just to kind of get some brand recognition. So if I called again, they're like, oh, she's the one that brought the cupcakes. Yeah, well, I'll take that call. Silly as it is, but really the networking and going to events and putting yourself out there. I know it's hard for some people, and it's not like comfortable for me to go up and just start introducing myself to people, but I would have a goal of like, tonight we're going to give out 5 business cards, or tonight we're going to do 4 business cards, whatever my goal was for the night. And I was not allowed to leave until that was done. And then just over time, people start seeing you or knowing you. I would even go into facings, Craftsman Court, some of our furniture showrooms, and introduce myself and say, I'm new to the community. I'm not going to bring you any business today, but I just wanted to introduce myself and know that the business is going to come. It just might take a little time, but I wanted to introduce myself. And so really kind of embedding myself into the community, and it's been awesome. And I know, we did a vignette at the Sub-Zero Wolf showroom, and that really, literally everything that just came from me calling and saying, put me on your party list. I want to be invited. And then just really taking advantage of the people that were there and the opportunities to meet new people. Yeah.
There's something I think to put in context for those listening to. You said something that most of us probably haven't thought about. You not only did you Google and you reach out and you went through social media, but you went into suppliers and vendors, which a lot of people may not have thought of from a building design or architecture standpoint. You go to Sub-Zero Wolf. Hey, I want to be to the network events. I want to come to the party. So Sub-Zero Wolf has a really nice showroom here by my office in Scottsdale, amazing place. And they reached out to, I don't know how many designers there were, Jenny, maybe 10, I don't know. But
yeah, that's about right.
There was it was a small amount. And they said, okay, in our showroom, we're going to have it formatted to these vignettes. And so you were one of 10, and we have a ton of talent. I mean, Phoenix is a huge city. There's a ton. And so it just goes to show you that quickly you have your own space in the Sub-Zero Wolf showroom.
Yeah.
And again, that's from the networking, that you brought in, and now you have a staple in your sign there in their showroom to everyone that comes through.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the design community in Phoenix, and maybe you feel the same way with builders, like I think we have an amazing group of designers, and I feel like for the most part, we're open to sharing, and we have great vendors like Sub-Zero Wolf, like Ferguson's, all these people that we have the opportunity to work with. I think we have a really great network of people who truly want to help each other out, who want to help and see each other grow. And I love that about our communities. When I've talked to other designers in other places, they say, oh, nobody will share information, or nobody wants to help us grow. And it's like a rising tide raises all ships. Like, you just have to want good for you and for your whole community as a whole, as the design community, to just everybody is raised when everybody's willing to share and open up. And I do love that about where we live. It's wonderful.
How have you found that, though? Because I know probably some of that has to do with your openness and the strategy behind it, and personality management. Sure, a lot of that plays into it. But how did you start building those networks where you get to a point with other designers to say, how are you running your business? What are you charging? Because for you, again, you're hitting it hard trying to figure out, what should I be charging?
Yeah.
What should my design book look like? I know you've asked me that before and all that.
Yep. Yeah. And thank you for that, because, I always want to improve. And I think that's why getting together with other designers. So the designers in my probably closest, I have a lot of awesome designers in the Valley, but Brittany and Lexi, who are all here in Gilbert. And somebody might say, you have 3 designers who are all in Gilbert, all fighting for the same people. Why in the world would you be sharing? We share our contracts with each other. We share what we charge. We share everything with each other. But it's like I said, if one of us is growing and improving, then the rest of us are too. If we all have about the same rate that we're all charging, one of us doesn't look way higher or way lower, right? We're all going to benefit from that. I know that we also, if we don't have jobs that we can take on at that time, I'll reach out to them and say like, hey, there's a project, I can't take it right now. Would you guys be interested? And I think there's opportunity in finding people that are willing to be open with you, so that you can improve on each other's businesses. And I think you'll know when you meet somebody if they're going to be open, or in how your conversation evolves, where it's like, hey, would you like to go out to dinner sometime and just sit and talk shop? And that's kind of what happened with Lexi and Brittany. It was just sort of like very casual. It wasn't like, let's sit down and have dinner and share each other's contracts. Like that comes later. But like when you first get in there and just say, hey, like, let's just sit down and talk shop for a little bit. And then if things evolve and get to that point, it's awesome. And I truly have loved and appreciated having them for me. And I know they probably feel the same way, as almost somebody that is also support. If one of us is having a really crappy experience, we're there for each other. And hey, what can we do next time to prevent this from happening to you or to me? What do we need to do to change our contract, or how we present to the client in the beginning? How can we prevent this from happening? So we really lean on each other too.
So there's definitely a mentality of abundance as scarcity. And I think that, any successful entrepreneur will attribute that, right? That there's a sense of confidence. And, it's just, they're not looking at this small little playground. They're looking like a lot of opportunity. And again, you want to compete against competitive people. You want to compete against someone that's run their business correctly and doing it right. And it makes it better for the industry, for you and everybody, especially as you're presenting to clients. As your company's grown for you and Ben, looking at where you're at today, systems, procedures, I would imagine that there's been a lot of time, especially with Ben's background and you living this day to day, Jenny. How has that changed from an operational standpoint? If I were to hire you today as opposed to 5 years ago, how does that look like for me as a customer?
Yeah, I'll let Ben answer this, but I will say this. We change our contract after every single client, because there's always something that we learn or something new that came up. And at literally every project, we change our contract. It's a very fluid document that it's like probably one of the tabs that's constantly open on our browser, so that it's like, oh, so we're changing that for the next client. But Ben, you can talk about the policies and kind of the procedures and how we run things.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple things when you talk about. Jenny mentioned sort of the investment in relationships. There's also investment in just in the business in general. So one of the things that we've never been afraid of is to hire consultants or business coaches, or and spend a lot of time listening to podcasts and sort of within that community too, asking questions. And so kind of through all that process, you kind of learn where you have gaps in your processes and procedures. And so where we really were hitting it hard, or Jenny started in 2016, I mean, very limited in terms of any structure. And then, every year that goes by, it seems like whether it's a new process we implement or a new system that we use to help us organize and manage our activities, from a project management standpoint, we're constantly looking and striving and trying to improve. And so we have, again, where we started without like even written sort of policies and procedures, we now have, all our policies and procedures written. And like every business, we could probably spend some time going back and reviewing and revamping and updating those. But at least we have some general ways of working. And so that our team members, anytime we bring anybody on, we can point to training materials or a video. Here's how we enter items into our, design and procurement software, so that we make sure we have every detail needed to be able to, present it to a client and then turn that into a purchase order that from our vendor, and to make sure that's a seamless process and as efficient as possible. So without speaking to every program and system we use, we have added elements here and there to help us be more efficient and to just do a better job of keeping track of the things we're doing, so that we can communicate with clients more clearly and that we can communicate with each other. Simple things like we used to have a once a week meeting where it was sort of like our project meeting. We'd go through every project, and then we realized, we probably need to have that more frequent. So we implemented a daily call where even if it's only 15 minutes, we kind of hit the highlight items. What are the priorities for the day? What do we got to tackle? So it's just constant communication, because we have, we're not all working from the same location. So it keeps us in touch. So just basic things like that, communication, having some expectations set, places that people can find training, and the right systems really have, kind of taken our ability to grow and expand and take on more and more work to be able to handle that efficiently.
I love that you shared how after every project you're updating your system, because we're totally the same. After every project, there's things that have gone wrong, or even if they didn't go wrong, maybe things were like, oh, we could have done that better. We can improve that. We can improve that communication, that expectation. We can improve that system and scheduling. And even from, accounting to field operations to whatever it may be. And even I know we've spent a lot of time just internally, like, do we have the right people on the bus? Are they in the right seat? Right. Do I need to
Mm.
change their role, their title, what their scope of work is, updating organizational charts. It's amazing how often we're doing that now, which first few years of the company we didn't, but now, that is a huge part of what we're doing.
Yeah. And I think it's harder, as you probably know, Brad, you guys are in the same boat, and the more you take on, right, the busier you get. And then sometimes it's easy to forget to go back and make those adjustments and to spend time investing in the business again, because you're so focused on your clients. I mean, obviously clients take the priority, but it's a challenge, I think. And so I'd be curious, like, how do you guys make sure you make the time, at AFT to make sure that you're working on the business, as well as taking care of your clients?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And that was something I really struggle with because, you always hear from all these business coaches or, any information you download, they're like, oh, you should be spending, at least 10 to 20% of your time on the business, at least, or, focusing on outside of the business. Right. And then, 80% in the day to day or whatever, right. That tends to take so much of our time. But what we've done is I put together like a leadership council, leadership team. So I have some key people in my organization that are essentially in those positions, and they're over different departments. You have to look at, for us, we're looking at accounting, ARAP. We're looking at contracts and vetting subs and our pre-con, which is part of our pre-con estimating, and then we have our field operations. So you kind of have these different department heads. And so we meet every 2 weeks, typically for about 2 hours, and we're going through. We have an agenda, a formal printout. And I'm not a meeting guy just to have meetings. Like, I don't want to just have meeting. Like, anyone that knows me, I'm like really punctual about, like, we're doing this, and like, you just don't have a lot of time to be just chit chatting. So we're really formulated as far as what we're going through, and then what happens from those meetings. Now we can take, because each of their employees in those departments are giving them ideas and thoughts and ideas, to strengthen our process. And so now we take that and we implement them. So then our production meeting we actually implement those and train and teach. And that's the thing, it's train and train and train. So we implement them, we make those changes, and we train and train. And then essentially it's been successful, the last 4 or 5 months. And this is new. This is this year, 2023, we're doing this. But I wish I would have done it sooner, because there's just so much information from my team that you're getting in a more organized environment that you can now reciprocate and then, put into your company.
Yeah.
What about you
That's
guys? Because I
awesome.
know,
I love you have a leadership team. That sounds very bougie. I love that for you.
very bougie. Yes, it is very
No,
bougie.
but it's so important, because I will say this, we will sometimes get lost in the day-to-day work, right? You can, if you wanted to just sit and do your emails and whatever is on your to-do list, it's always client first, because you've got the deadlines or the builder needs something. And so sometimes you get on that hamster wheel and you don't take the time to say, just a minute, I need to think big picture, because if I take the time now to do the big picture things, my business is going to be better in the long run, versus me being on this hamster wheel. And that's why, to Ben's point, we have hired a business coach, and we've hired other people to help us in our business to be to stop and think about the business. Because if you get stuck in the day-to-day of just running and just doing your task list, your business isn't going to be able to grow to its full potential, because you aren't taking the time that your business needs to be able to, keep up with your growth and to evolve. So good for you, for your leadership team. I've got Ben. Ben's my leadership team. Ben, you've just been appointed.
Well, I mean, Brad, I know one of the things we didn't probably touch on is we made at some point in time, it's been a few years back, but just a conscious decision. Like we kind of, at some point we were kind of like, hey, we're growing, we're hiring, we kind of have this empire we're building. And then I think it got to a point, it was probably during COVID, where there's a sort of recognition, I think, for Jenny, like, hey, is that really what I want for my life, and is that what we want, to just get to continue to expand and grow, or would we rather stay pretty small and lean and be more selective in the projects we take on versus feeling that the pressure to take everything on because we have to support this ever growing team, right? So it's a dilemma probably every entrepreneur faces at some point. It's like, what does the future look like for them? And we made the choice to just stay small, lean, be more selective in our projects, take bigger projects, fewer of them, allowing us to invest our energy really into clients and relationships, into the projects that we mentioned earlier that bring joy and really allow Jenny's personality and style to come out. So it's been interesting because I think in doing that, you also feel like maybe everybody's wearing a lot of hats, and it's harder to delineate roles and responsibilities in some cases because everybody's pitching in to do what they can to keep projects moving forward. So it's clearly, this conversation is good for me to just recognize, like, even in that state, we're in kind of the lean, mean machine. We have to invest back into the business and take time analyzing, projects and so forth, and whether it's Jenny and I as a leadership team, whatever that looks like, certainly opportunities for us there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and the leaders.
okay.
Go ahead, Jenny.
No, I was just going to say, I think, first and foremost, I'm a mom. And when I had this idea of building this empire and having this big team and having my office, and I loved it while I had it. And then COVID just put the brakes on, and I realized my relationships with my daughters were suffering. We commuted, and you still have the same commute that I had, sometimes 50 minutes to an hour each way.
It's terrible.
And I was missing recitals. I was missing school assemblies. I was missing, whatever practice. Like, I had lost touch with my main priority, which is being a mom. And so we made the decision during COVID when I realized I don't need to have what I thought I needed. And maybe it was an ego thing of like, I want to have this beautiful office, and I want to show people that I am an interior designer. And for some reason, I felt like I needed that to validate myself. And I just realized I have very few years left with my girls. They're now 13 and 15. I'm like, I have very few years left with them to have that relationship that I want. I don't want to be that mom that was gone before they woke up or shortly after, and then didn't get home till 6:30 for dinner. And then I was too exhausted to be, of any use to anybody. Right. And I just thought, let's just bring the business home. We have employees. We have a little studio in our backyard where our employees come, and then some are virtual. But for me, it was just the right decision. And I think maybe there's somebody out there listening who needs to hear that, you don't have to have an empire. You don't have to have a space. Like, do what works for you and for your family.
I love that you shared that. So maybe break that down. Success means so many different things. What does it mean to you and Ben?
I think I've learned over time, if you were to have asked me that 5 years ago, it always would have been a number. There would have been what was my annual goal that year, and that was the most important thing to me. And I've learned over the years that a lot of it, yes, obviously I want to be able to provide and have a nice living, but there's also an element of what is my quality of life. And I think in our business where we can get on that hamster wheel and run and want more, and you're trying to go for this goal that might be achievable, might not be achievable, but we're going for something. And then you stop and you look and you like, what am I sacrificing on the personal side that in order to try to make this goal that may or may not actually be that important? It's a number that I put on a piece of paper in January 1, of that year. And so just really taking a look at what are the costs to my personal life, to my personal health. I feel like I have been on a health journey the last few years with just I think you don't take care of yourself sometimes. You get so busy, you focused on deadlines or a goal that you put your own self on the back burner. And I'm learning that I just can't do that anymore. And so having the smaller team, working from home, having my relationships improve with my daughters has been just amazing for me.
And what about for you, Ben?
Yeah, I think what I think of it as, there's again a principle that has been a part of sort of my professional life, but it's freedom, right? That it's so when I think of success, is have we achieved the freedom to in our schedules, financially, so that we can do the things that we want to do in our lives, right? But and that's both professionally and personally. So the freedom to choose what clients to work with, right? The freedom to choose how many clients I want, the freedom to choose my schedule, when I'm going to take time off, where I'm going to go spend time with family, and so forth. So to me, I think of freedom as the ultimate success, right? That the ability for us to control our lives and not for external factors to control.
How about you, Brad? I'm curious, what does success look like to Brad Leavitt?
Um, yeah, it's interesting. I think there's a lot to that, but I think most importantly is time, and freedom. Really, what you're both speaking about. I mean, you mentioned, Jenny, the importance of, as you think about the commute and spending time with your daughters and where they're at a stage, and then you know Ben talking about freedom. I think that's, to me, success. It's funny because as a kid, or social media, or so many things around us define success as so many different things, but
Hmm.
I found at my age now, success for me is freedom, is time, is opportunity to go on vacation with my family, have time with them. Look, we work hard, and even when I'm on vacation, I'm working, but it's being sensitive to the time that I have with them. And part of that, I think success is legacy, right? I look, um, I hope that when my time's done, I hope there's value I've given to my team, to my employees, to their careers, taught them something. I'm pretty open about sharing anything I have on any platform. And I think that, the freedom and the legacy are really important to success. To me, money's never been a driver for me. Just never is. I didn't grow up. I grew up with a dad that was a union electrician and a mom that was at home. And so didn't have much as a kid. It's just never been, a huge driver for me. But yeah, I think that's the easy answer. I think we're very similar that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Love it.
I guess, to be sensitive to your time, because I know we're just about out of time here. So what keeps you both up at night?
Furniture.
Furniture.
Freaking furniture every night. Oh, 3 a.m.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say, like, and Jenny mentioned her health, like, this, and I think any entrepreneur feels this at certain times in their lives, right? Like, there can be a lot of stress because you do feel, right, like your family's sort of livelihood was on your shoulders, right, and also the livelihoods of those you employ, and then also you just, so I guess there's that element of, like, of, okay, how are we doing? Do we, financially, but it's also, are we doing right by our clients? So that's what keeps me up. I think when I feel like something hasn't gone up to expectation, or maybe we haven't delivered in the way that we delivered it, it eats you up inside. I mean, and I
Yeah.
think it should, really. I mean, ultimately, our job and our responsibility, outside of ourselves and our families, is to our clients who are paying us, right? They're ultimately the ones paying our paychecks, if you think of it that way. So, um, when things aren't going right with a client, that keeps me up, because it just,
Yeah.
it kind of, it kind of eats at you, and it wears on you a little bit. But even probably the connection to that is the impact it has on Jenny. So, like, I sit there and I watch her, the stress, and right, like, she puts a lot of time and love into what she does. And so when there's a difficult situation with a client, right, I see it wearing on her, and that bothers me, right, as her husband, and as her, like, her business partner. So those are probably two things: it's the client stuff, and then seeing the impact it has on Jenny. Those are the things that keep me up.
Wow.
That's a very depressing note to leave this podcast on.
It's not depressing. No, that's not depressing. I mean, the reality is a lot of us can relate to that. And I think, just if I can share one thing, because you asked, when I speak legacy, I think the easiest way to define that, if I can use this. So there was a mentor of mine, Doug Steinley, when I was a young teenager, and he said, everything should be better because you were there. Right. And so
Mm.
what that means, and that's something I try to live by, but I guess the easy example is, right after he said that, I heard him give that, essentially a little conference, and he was teaching about that. We go into the bathroom, there's a break, and we're in a public bathroom. So, people are washing their hands and, water spills on the sink, and he grabs some paper towels and he just starts cleaning the sink, right? And wiping things down. There's like a napkin on the floor that he picked up and threw away. And so in his whole life, that's how he lived. And I think all of us, just is Black Ink better because you were there? Is your customer better because they hired you? Is my team better because they work for me? And so I think if everyone in our society applied just that logic, like, we'd be a lot better. But again,
A lot
it is what
better.
it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for those listening, where can they find you?
They can find us on social media on Instagram at black.ink.interiors. Whoa. Yeah, that's pretty much our platform that we choose. We're not on all of them. So black.ink.interiors on Instagram. You can find us, DM us, whatever.
Yeah, and website blackinkinteriors.com, pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
So easy
And
to
it's
find.
ink with a K, not C.
Yeah, that's a good clarification.
Yeah. Black ink, like a pen. Yeah.
Well, Jenny, Ben, you've both been amazing. I know this is long overdue, so thanks for making time and
Thanks,
and
Brad.
sharing your insight with our audience.
Thank you
Thanks
so
for
much for having us.
If you get value from the show, please support us by giving a 5-star rating and review on whatever platform you listen to. And I also have a favor to ask. We've had some incredible guests that come on and share their wisdom, their knowledge about their business. So if you have friends or family members that could benefit from those episodes, please share it with them, as well as any other business owners that you're networking with that could get value from the podcast or certain episodes. Please share those as well. Again, subscribe, make sure you're following. Any questions that you have, topics. We've had listeners reach out about certain guests that we should have on the show. Again, brad.l@aftconstruction.com. Email me for topics to address, guests that we should have on, and even if you think you'd be a great guest for the show. So again, thank you for all your support, and we'll see you next time.